Welcome to Hot Planet Coolcast. Be the chill change you want to see in the world. The place to go for deep conversations about the world's important problems today. My name is Annika and I'm excited to be joined by my co-host Atrice Jorolan. We also have three amazing guests who are leading the fight against climate change.
That's right, Annika. We are excited to have Jalea, Kirby, and Rian with us. They each bring something different to the table regarding knowledge and ideas. We will learn about SDG 13, also known as climate action, and discuss how we can all help make the future more sustainable.
Our guests today are leaders in climate action, from those who promote green energy to those who work to protect the environment. We can't wait to hear what they have to say.
Sure thing, Annika. This episode will discuss the problems, chances, and new ideas fueling the global push for climate justice. We'll talk about everything, from policy changes to grassroots action.
It's an honor to be here with you, Annika and Atrice. Understanding climate change is hard, but needs immediate attention and action. We can make a change if we work together.
I completely agree with you, Jalea. There has never been a time when the stakes were greater or when there was more hope for change. It's time to act boldly as a group.
Of course, we can all help protect our planet for future generations as people, groups, and countries. I can't wait to learn how to work together to stop climate change.
Well said! So listeners, prepare for a talk that will teach and inspire you. Sit down, get a snack, and come with us as we start this trip to make the world more resilient and sustainable for everyone.
Hold on tight, everyone. The discussion will now begin.
Let's start with the basics to get things going. Atrice, could you tell us about SDG 13, also called climate action?
Sure. One of the Sustainable Development Goals that the UN set up in 2015 is SDG 13. It basically says that climate change is a big problem and that countries must work together to solve it. It is hard to reach other SDGs, like ending poverty and hunger, because climate change changes weather trends, rises sea levels, and hurt ecosystems.
That's right. Jalea, could you explain more about how taking action on climate change affects our lives and the planet?
Of course, taking action could mean short-term changes to our daily lives and the business. But it's important for the long term. By fighting climate change, we hope to make the earth healthier by making the air and water cleaner, making the climate more steady by having fewer extreme weather events, and, in the end, a better future for ourselves and future generations.
Right on, Jalea. There is no doubt about the perks. But Rian, could you talk about some of the biggest problems we face when we try to take actions on climate change?
Oh sure, Kirby. There are several problems we need to solve. Some of the problems that need to be solved are getting countries to work together better, handling the economic shift away from fossil fuels, dealing with political opposition, and making sure that developing countries have a smooth and fair change. Also, making progress on renewable energy technology is crucial for ending climate change.
Good points, Rian. Dealing with climate change clearly needs a worldwide effort. Welcome back to Hot Planet Coolcast. Be the chill change you want to see in the world. As we started the show, we talked about why SDG 13 is important, how it affects our lives and the world, and how it affects climate action. Let's now talk about specific parts of this huge goal in more detail.
Absolutely, Annika. Jalea, you know that climate change has different effects in different places. Could you explain that more for our listeners?
Yes, Atrice. Not everyone is equally affected by climate change. In warmer regions, areas that are likely to experience more extreme heat waves, droughts, and water scarcity. This can lead to problems like crop failure and food insecurity. Plus, harsh weather events like heat waves, droughts, floods, storms, and wildfires are happening more often and getting worse in many places.
Jalea, that's a very important point. Kirby, the Philippines was especially at risk. Could you give some specific examples of how climate change affects the area?
Sure thing, Annika. The Philippines is in the typhoon belt. which means that storms are getting stronger and happening more often. Many seaside towns are also in danger because the sea level is rising. Depending on the country, though, the effects can be different. Due to changing weather trends, Davao region might be less likely to be hit by typhoons, but more likely to flood. These changes could also have an effect on farming, especially banana supply. Climate change is a complicated problem that needs methods for all areas to both adapt and lessen its effects.
Thanks, Kirby. Now, Rian, let's switch gears and talk about some climate change programs that have worked well. Could you give me some examples that inspire you?
Yes, Atrice. When countries agree on something like the Paris Agreement, it makes it easier for everyone to work together to solve climate problems. National carbon pricing schemes also encourage people and companies to switch to cleaner options. Planting trees to restore ecosystems or putting solar water heaters are examples of local environmental projects that help the area. These cases show how effective climate action can combine goals for the environment, the economy, and the people's well-being.
Rian, those are great examples! Let's now give our fans power. Jalea, what can people do in their daily lives to help fight climate change?
Great question, Annika. Even though climate change seems scary, each person's action can make a difference. A good first step is to cut down on your carbon footprint, making small changes like using products that use less energy, walking, biking, or taking the bus can have a big effect. Another good way to save energy at home is to turn off lights and tools when they are not in use.
Of course. Kirby, let's go into more detail. How can the things we buy help fight climate change?
I'm glad you asked, Atrice. Think about how much you use generally and choose products that are good for the environment. To make things last longer, you might want to fix them up or buy used ones. Choosing goods with little or no packaging helps cut down on waste. Your food choices can also make a difference. Try eating more plant-based meals or choosing seasonals, locally grown food. Because animals leave behind a lot of carbon dioxide. Eating less meat, especially red meat, has a big effect on the environment.
How interesting! Let's hand the microphone to Rian and talk about trip options. What are some eco-friendly ways to travel?
For shorter trips, you might want to look into public transit such as trains and buses. When you fly, you might want to look into carbon balancing programs that put money into green energy projects to make up for the pollution you cause. Ultimately, it's important to move as little as possible and choose greener ways to get around whenever possible.
Right. How about a question for our host, Annika, about how can we push for climate change that goes beyond what each of us does?
Speak up! Make your family and friends more aware of the problems caused by climate change. Help businesses that care about the environment and ensure local leaders follow through on their climate action plans.
Of course, it's also important to stay educated. Do research on the problems and possible answers. Knowing more gives you the power to make smart choices and push for change. Remember that even small changes can make a big difference in the fight against climate change if they are made by millions of people.
Now we'll talk about the exciting world of new tools and ways to slow down climate change. Can you tell me more about some of these improvements, Jalea?
Yes, Annika. Renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, geothermal, and wave power are always changing and getting better, cheaper, and easier to use. Imagine next generation wind turbines that can reach higher to collect more wind power, or concentrated solar power plants that can focus the sun's rays to make a lot of energy.
Wow, Jalea, that's an inspiring idea. What about collecting carbon emissions and putting them away?
We need carbon capture and storage to help with this. You can think of it as a safely storing carbon dioxide emissions from power plants and companies underground before they get into the air. Even though CCS is still being worked on, it could be a huge deal for businesses that depends on fossil fuels.
That's very interesting. Let's look at direct air capture, which is another new technique. Rian, could you tell us how it works?
Yes, Annika. Central carbon capture, or CCS, tries to stop emissions where they happen. Direct air capture, or DAC, on the other hand, takes carbon dioxide out of the air directly. Even though they are expensive now, improvements in DAC technology could be very important for getting rid of the extra carbon in the air.
As we wrap up our talk about taking action on climate change, let's go over the main points of SDG 13. Atrice, could you briefly explain why this goal is so important?
Sure thing, Annika. Climate change is seen as a major threat to other SDGs, such as ending poverty and hunger. It stresses the need for a global reaction and asks countries to work together to solve this urgent problem. There are problems, like changes in the economy and opposition from politicians, but the long-term rewards are greater than the short-term problems. SDG 13 lays out a 5-point plan to fight climate change. These points are making people and institutions more resilient to climate disasters, including climate issues in national planning, getting developing countries the money and support they need, and making sure that developing countries can effectively participate.
Yes, Atrice, that is a great summary. We need to know why we need to do something about global change. Rian, why is it so important for people, groups, and countries to put climate action at the top of their list?
We can't avoid climate change. It's necessary for our health, our businesses, and the well-being of society as a whole. It puts our health at risk with heat waves, dirty air, and diseases that spread through water. If you do something, the water and air will be cleaner, which will lead to a healthy future. Not doing anything costs a lot. Floods and droughts destroy infrastructure, mess up supply lines, and force people to move. Putting climate action at the top of the list means investing in a better future for companies and countries. Furthermore, climate change affects weaker groups more than others, especially in developing countries. Taking action on climate change supports a fair shift that ensures everyone has a bright future. Lastly, fighting climate change requires people worldwide to work together. When countries work together, they can not only solve this problem better, but they can also encourage new, clean technologies that are good for everyone. Putting action on climate change at the top of our list of priorities is basically an investment in our health, our prosperity, and the future of our world.
Rian, thank you. Now, Kirby, what are some steps that people can actually take to help fight climate change?
Cutting down on your carbon output is a strong first step. Choose eco-friendly ways to get around, like walking, biking, or taking the bus. Buy devices and appliances that use less energy, and don't forget to turn them off when you're not using them.
What other ways do our spending habits make a difference besides the energy we use?
Pay attention to what you buy. Pick products that don't come in a lot of packaging, and buy from companies that care about the world. Choose durable, high-quality items to cut down on total consumption.
That is wonderful. Jalea, how can the food you eat help you take action on climate change?
Eat more plant-based foods and think about buying seasonal and local food. Another important choice is to eat less red meat, a big greenhouse gas source.
And travel choices?
Instead of driving when unnecessary, consider walking, biking, or taking the bus for short trips. Also, think about participating in carbon offsetting programs for planes to mitigate the pollution they generate.
How can we work for change other than our own actions?
Say something. Make your family and friends more aware. Help businesses that care about the environment and ensure local leaders follow through on their climate action plans.
Also, staying updated is very important.
Of course, do research on the problems and possible answers. Knowing more gives you the power to make smart choices and push for change. Remember that even small changes can make a big difference in the fight against climate change.
Now, let's look at how likely it is that SDG 13 will be met in the future. Jalea, what are some of the problems and changes we face?
To reach the SDG 13 goals, a lot of work and a lot of different things will need to come together. Many problems need to be solved, like getting the government to always back clean technologies, getting countries to work together, making the economic switch away from fossil fuels, and ensuring everyone has equal access to cheap, clean technologies.
Are there reasons to be hopeful despite the problems?
Of course, as people become more aware, they put pressure on businesses and governments to act. Renewable energy sources, such as solar and wind power, are getting cheaper all the time. New battery storage technologies, carbon capture technologies, and plug-based options look like they could be useful. Businesses also engage in clean technologies and practices because they know how important it is to be environmentally friendly.
So, working together and developing new ideas are key to the future.
Precisely, Annika. For development to go faster, international cooperation must be strengthened through effective agreements and financial aid for developing countries, keeping the money going into research and development of green tools.
Yes, definitely. We are done for the day now.
Thanks to Jalea, Kirby, and Rian, our wonderful friends, for sharing their knowledge on how to help the environment.
Don't forget that everyone can help fight climate change. Take small daily steps to start making a difference. Spread the word and push for change.
Thanks for watching Hot Planet Coolcast. Be the chill change you want to see in the world. Until next time!